Hi, my name is Nicole and welcome to my channel, Heart Disease Diaries. In today's video, I want to talk about emotional hunger versus physical hunger. Before I get into this content, I just want to give a little disclaimer. If you are recovering from disordered eating or an eating disorder, just be mindful of the material, as I do not want it to be triggering. I just want it to be informative. Emotional hunger happens when we use food to cope with intense emotions. And usually these intense emotions are loneliness, rejection, sadness, or even boredom. So here are 7 ways to identify emotional hunger, and then we will do 6 ways to identify physical hunger. The first way to identify emotional hunger is that it is prompted by an intense emotion. Emotional hunger is driven by intense emotions like loneliness, anger, boredom, or rejection. The second way to identify emotional hunger is that it comes on very quickly or even suddenly. The third way to identify emotional hunger is to remember that it does not necessarily mean that you are physically hungry or that your body is indicating that it needs food. It can be completely divorced or absent of physical hunger. The fourth way to identify emotional hunger is that it is usually for a specific food craving. Some people crave sweets, other people crave something more savory, but it's usually a very intense craving for a very specific food, and sometimes people will stop at nothing to get that specific food because they are emotionally hungry for it. The fifth way to identify emotional hunger is that people are usually not emotionally present or mindful when it comes to emotional hunger. A lot of times people's headspaces are somewhere else, not with the food. They might be thinking about that intense emotion, or they might be numbed out. Sometimes people aren't even able to enjoy or savor the taste of the food because they're just not present with it. The sixth way to identify emotional hunger: you don't feel satisfied or full after eating. It's almost as if that emotional emptiness that you felt just feels like it can't be satisfied or filled. And the seventh way to identify emotional hunger is that it is usually followed by intense shame or guilt. Because it's hard to be mindful when we're engaged in emotional eating, we might end up eating a lot more than we anticipated, and that can lead to a lot of shame or feelings of guilt. Now let's switch gears and talk about 6 ways to identify physical hunger. Physical hunger has been with us since we were babies, and we knew when we were hungry. We would cry for our mom's milk and she would feed us. So somewhere along the line, it's really easy to get out of touch with our hunger and fullness cues, especially in our busy, demanding days, and especially when we're just balancing these intense emotions. So let's do a little refresher about what physical hunger is. The first way to identify physical hunger is that it usually comes on gradually. If we look at this hunger scale, this is where you want to be, and this is when you are starting to get hungry. But it usually doesn't come on from 0 to 100. There is usually a gradual build up to physical hunger. For example, if you think about eating your breakfast at 8 a.m., by the time 10 a.m. rolls around, your hunger cues are slowly indicating that you want a snack or something else until lunch to hold you over. The second thing about physical hunger is that it is open to different varieties and choices. You probably know that feeling, especially if you're at work or you're traveling and you have physical hunger. A certain food might sound good, but if you're physically hungry and the only thing available is McDonald's, chances are you're probably going to get McDonald's because you need to fulfill that physical hunger. The third way to identify physical hunger is that it's filling a physical need, not an emotional need, like loneliness or emptiness, the way that emotional hunger is. The fourth thing about physical hunger is that there is usually an awareness and a presence with your food. So there's awareness of what sounds good, of how to make it balanced, and you're sitting with that meal and you're able to sit and enjoy it and be present with the meal. The fifth thing about physical hunger is that you are usually able to stop when you are full or satisfied, whereas with emotional hunger, you're not able to identify that satisfaction or fullness. And the sixth way to identify physical hunger is that there is usually no shame or guilt after you have eaten the food. You understand that food is an integral part of your day. You need it for your body, and you feel satisfied and you don't feel that guilt or shame. So I hope this information was helpful for you so that you are better aware of what emotional hunger is and how to differentiate it between physical hunger.